The eyes learned silence before the lips ever did. They learned it in rooms where words were punished, in moments where truth trembled and hid behind breath. They learned it while the world kept asking questions that could never be answered aloud. The eyes became a language without letters, a river flowing without a visible shore. They carried confessions heavier than speech, and grief that would break any sound it touched. In the mirror, they rehearsed calm, though storms lived behind their dark glass. They practiced looking fine, a performance perfected through years of survival. Silent eyes know how to smile without joy, how to glow without warmth, how to look present while being far away. They are trained in absence. They watch people come close and still remain unreachable. They see affection arrive late and understanding leave early. The sound of silent eyes is not heard by ears. It echoes in the chest, a dull ache with no clear origin. It sounds like a door gently closing, like footsteps fading in a familiar hallway. It sounds like prayers whispered inward, hoping God understands what the tongue refuses to say. Silent eyes have seen too much to shout. They have survived nights that rewrote faith, mornings that demanded strength without offering rest. They learned endurance, not expression. They carry memories folded tightly, so tightly that even tears hesitate to escape. When tears do fall, they apologize for their own existence. The eyes remember every unsaid word, every swallowed scream, every time the heart begged for permission to speak and was denied by fear. The world calls them strong, mistaking silence for peace. No one asks what it costs to be quiet all the time. The sound of silent eyes is the sound of patience breaking slowly, grain by grain, like sand slipping through clenched fists. It is the sound of love unreturned, of loyalty unnoticed, of effort mistaken for ease. Silent eyes watch celebrations. While mourning privately, they clap for others. With hands heavy from unseen weight, they attend gatherings, but sit beside loneliness. They laugh at the right moments. While grief checks the time, the eyes have learned to forgive quickly, not because wounds healed, but because carrying anger required too much energy. They forgive to survive, not to forget. At night, when the world sleeps, silent eyes finally speak to the dark, to the ceiling, to a God who listens without interruption. They ask questions without answers. They confess doubt without shame. They cry where no one can measure their weakness. The sound of silent eyes at night is a quiet collapse, a surrender wrapped in exhaustion. Morning arrives like a command, and the eyes obey. They wipe away the evidence. Wear composure like armor. No one notices the cracks. No one hears the echo. Silent eyes are often misunderstood. They are called cold, distant, proud. No one suspects they are simply tired of explaining pain that keeps repeating itself. They have explained before. To people who listened halfway, to people who stayed temporarily, to people who promised permanence and left quietly. So, the eyes chose silence, a safer language. The sound of silent eyes is the sound of trust withdrawn, of vulnerability folded and stored away. It is the sound of choosing solitude, not out of hatred, but out of self-preservation. Silent eyes still love deeply, perhaps too deeply. They feel everything, even when they pretend not to. They notice small changes, the shift in tone, the absence of care, the delay in concern. They notice everything and say nothing. The sound of silent eyes is the sound of acceptance mixed with sorrow, not resignation, but realism learned the hard way. They know some battles are lost before they begin. Some explanations are wasted on closed hearts. Yet, even in silence, hope flickers, a fragile light that refuses to die, no matter how often it is disappointed. Silent eyes hope quietly, so the world cannot break that hope too. They wait without demanding, love without insisting, stay without guarantees, and when they finally leave, they do so silently, taking their depth with them. Only then does the world realize what those eyes were carrying all along. The sound of silent eyes lingers after departure, a haunting absence, a question that arrives too late. It asks, "Why didn't you listen when they were still here?" And the silence answers back, unchanged, unyielding, eternal. The sound of silent eyes does not end when words stop. It stretches, like a shadow at dusk, longer than expected, harder to escape. Those eyes have learned how to hold entire conversations without moving a muscle. They speak in pauses, in glances that linger a second too long, in the way they look away. When truth gets close, they have mastered the art of looking through people, not because they don't care, but because caring once cost them too much. Silent eyes. Remember the first time they chose quiet. How loud the world was then. How overwhelming honesty felt. How quickly openness was punished. From that moment, they began collecting silence. The way others collect memories. They store it carefully, stacked behind the ribs, layered beneath patience, wrapped inside dignity. The sound of silent eyes is the sound of restraint, of holding back a storm, because the world only accepts rain. They have opinions they never voice, dreams they never announce, plans they never share until they are already gone. They learned that announcing pain invites judgment, that explaining sorrow demands proof, that vulnerability is often treated like entertainment, so they chose quiet. Silent eyes have watched love fade without asking why. They notice distance growing in the spaces between messages, in the silence after take care. They didn't chase explanations. They didn't beg for clarity. They simply adjusted their expectations and swallowed the ache. The sound of silent eyes is the sound of disappointment being folded into maturity. They have learned to lower their voice, even inside their own heart. Pope, once loud, now walks on tiptoe. These eyes have sat in crowds, feeling invisible, stood alone, feeling exposed. They know what it means to be present but unrecognized, to be needed but not valued, to be remembered only when convenient. Silent eyes understand timing too well. They know that truth spoken too early is ignored, and truth spoken too late is regretted. So they wait, not for permission, but for certainty. The sound of silent eyes is the ticking of internal clocks, counting moments, measuring sincerity, deciding when enough is enough. They are not weak. They are exhausted. Exhausted from carrying understanding alone, from being the one who forgives first, the one who stays calm, the one who gets it. No one asks, who understands them. Silent eyes have cried without tears, screamed without sound, collapsed without falling. They know how to survive in pieces. They have learned to sit with pain like an old acquaintance, not welcomed, but familiar. The sound of silent eyes is the sound of endurance, slow, steady, relentless. It is the sound of choosing peace over being right, distance over damage, silence over chaos. But sometimes, in rare unguarded moments, those eyes soften. When kindness arrives without demand, when listening comes without interruption, when presence stays without conditions, the silence trembles. In those moments, the eyes almost speak. They almost tell you about the nights spent bargaining with fate, about the prayers shaped like questions, about the dreams postponed, not abandoned. They almost tell you how deeply they feel, how fiercely they care, how loyal they remain, even after being wounded. But fear clears its throat, and silence resumes. The sound of silent eyes returns like a familiar song, soft, unavoidable. These eyes do not ask to be saved. They only wish to be understood. They don't seek attention. They seek recognition. The kind that sees effort. The kind that notices consistency. The kind that values presence. Silent eyes know what it means to love quietly, to sacrifice anonymously, to support from the shadows. They give without keeping score, until one day they realize the scoreboard was empty. The sound of silent eyes changes then. It becomes heavier, more deliberate, less forgiving. They stop explaining altogether. They stop expecting reciprocity. They stop reaching where they are not met. This is not bitterness. It is boundaries forming. Silent eyes learn that silence can also be strength. That withdrawal can be wisdom. That leaving can be... They begin to choose themselves, quietly, without announcements. And when they do, the world feels it. A sudden absence of depth. A missing calm, a silence that no longer comforts. The sound of silent eyes becomes a lesson too late learned. People realize they mistook patience for permanence, understanding for obligation, quiet love for unlimited access. But silent eyes do not return for apologies. They have already forgiven and moved on. Still, somewhere deep inside, they carry a softer hope that one day someone will listen without needing words. Someone will hear the sound of silent eyes and stay. Someone will understand that silence was never emptiness. It was depth waiting for safety. And when that happens, the eyes may finally rest, not because pain is gone, but because it is no longer alone. The sound of silent eyes will then become something new. Not sorrow, not endurance, but peace. The sound of silent eyes changes with time, but it never truly disappears. It matures, like grief that learns new names, like patience that stops asking for rewards. These eyes have watched seasons change without celebrating beginnings. They have learned that not every sunrise means renewal, and not every ending comes with closure. Silent eyes have lived through promises, spoken confidently and broken casually. They remember tones, not just words. They remember how voices softened when they wanted something and hardened when accountability arrived. The sound of silent eyes is the memory of imbalance, giving more than receiving, understanding more than being understood. They know what it means to be emotionally fluent in rooms full of emotional illiteracy. They sense discomfort before it is admitted, dishonesty before it is proven, distance before it is declared, and still they stay quiet. Silent eyes have learned that clarity frightens those who survive on confusion, so they observe carefully, patiently, silently. The sound of silent eyes is the soft clicking of realizations locking into place. They stop arguing with reality. They stop rewriting stories to make others look kinder. They accept what is shown, not what is said. These eyes have loved people at their worst, only to be questioned. At their best, they have supported dreams that never included them. They have celebrated others' growth while shrinking themselves to fit unspoken expectations. The sound of silent eyes is the quiet grief of sabr. But silence, too, has a breaking point. Not a loud one, not dramatic, just a moment when the eyes no longer try. They no longer seek reassurance. They no longer explain absences. They no longer correct misunderstandings. They let people believe whatever makes them comfortable. The sound of silent eyes, at this stage, is acceptance without attachment. They detach gently, like loosening a grip, without dropping the truth. They no longer expect to be chosen. They choose themselves, not angrily, not bitterly, but firmly. Silent eyes become observant again, but this time with distance as protection. They watch. Patterns repeat. Roles recycle. Mistakes disguise themselves as coincidences, and they learn that silence is not always submission. Sometimes it is refusal. Refusal to beg. Refusal to overgive. Refusal to stay misunderstood. The sound of silent eyes becomes sharper, cleaner, lighter. It sounds like relief. These eyes rediscover simple joys: solitude without loneliness, peace without explanation, presence without performance. They stop shrinking. They stop overthinking reactions. They stop translating themselves for people who never tried to listen. The sound of silent eyes softens here. It becomes the hum of the calm of emotional alignment, the stillness of boundaries honored. They still feel deeply, that never leaves. But now, they feel selectively. They give access only where care is mutual, where listening is intentional, where silence is not exploited. Silent eyes learn that not everyone deserves their depth. They understand that privacy is power, and peace is priceless. The sound of silent eyes now echoes less painfully. It sounds like walking away without needing revenge, like forgiving without reopening doors, like healing without announcing progress. They no longer need validation for their endurance. They know what they survived. And sometimes, when the night is gentle and the heart is steady, those eyes look at the sky without carrying questions. They simply exist. In those moments, the silence is not heavy. It is holy. The sound of silent eyes rests in that sacred quiet, no longer begging to be heard, no longer afraid of being unseen. They have learned that the deepest sounds are felt, not spoken. And so the eyes remain silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they finally understand that peace does not need an audience.